thank you all for your time. I know some of you have had to give up your free time to do this PLC. I'd like to share with you all some action research that I did. My topic was reflective assessment techniques. I'll tell you why this was important in my introduction, and you can follow along on your PowerPoint. The level of student engagement is one of the most important factors affecting student achievement. Changes to improve student engagement are primarily instructional in nature. So the focus of my research is about instruction and teaching practices that we can do that will engage students more. So right here I said, what can we do? And my answer that I would like to present to you is that we can do reflective assessment techniques. The benefit of reflective assessment techniques is it helps students to self-monitor the progress. Students have opportunity to critique the work of others. Students have opportunity to find mistakes in their work in a small group. The purpose of the study was to design a learning environment that implements those engaging instructional practices, and so that we can improve student engagement. Student achievement can be increased by engaging students in a self-monitoring process. So when I talk about reflective assessment, that's just a self-monitoring process. So throughout my research, I had the kids to monitor their own progress. The teacher provides students with opportunities for a combination of peer feedback and self-assessment. So in my unit, we do a lot of peer feedback. The following questions will guide the action research. When I did my action research, I had to come up with both quantitative and qualitative questions. The first one is, how does the implementation of the teaching practice reflective assessment impact student achievement? So that was my quantitative. And then the qualitative was, how does the implementation of the teaching practice reflective assessment impact student motivation to stay engaged? So obviously that's in action research. You know, if we were just talking one-on-one, I wouldn't have it so wordy. But for action research, you have to have certain things in there, so that's why I do that. Some of the sources that I used Diaglo, and they stated that one of the most important factors for student learning is their level of engagement with academically purposeful activities. And the good thing about this is the changes to improve student engagement are instructional, which we all deal with every day, trying to figure out how we can change our instruction. Designing a learning environment conducive for learning is necessary. Implementing engaging techniques or practices are necessary. So for this to work, you've got to be purposeful about the activities that you put in your instruction. Also, White and Fredrickson viewed a self-monitoring process as instructional changes to increase student engagement. And what I really like about this, you all, is that it does not require more instructional time. What you're doing is you're just letting the kids reflect, so your activities has to have built in where they get to do the reflecting, and you are a facilitator. And the teacher facilitates and observes the cycle of peer assessment. And this is really big in our PGS. All of us have gone through the evaluations, and we all know that that's something they really want us to do. They look at what the teacher says, what the students do. My last source talked about that there's been extensive research done to focus on how students are engaged, and they say that student engagement impacts student success. And I have surveyed you all, or just in conversation, and I think we all have agreed that student engagement really does determine their success. So the recommendation by these two people are that you need to focus time and resources on methodologies and technologies that enhance student engagement. So that sounds like we need some professional development where we have technology that shows us some teaching practices that will help with that. And I've already talked about the qualitative and quantitative. And since the quantitative, I did an experimental and a control group. And when you think of quantitative data, you think about pre-test and post-test. And as I was doing this unit, Jennifer was actually teaching the same unit. and there was no experimenting going on. So my action research was just me, but it was 2 of my classes. I kept them as similar as possible. They were both accelerated, and all of the material was the same. It was just the way that I presented the material that was different. This collection of teacher data, this is what I was alluding to just a minute ago. I had talked to you all one-on-one about, did you all think that having students to reflect about their work was helpful? And all of you said that you agree that if you reflect on your work, that it helps you be more successful. I selected, like I said, an experimental group and a control group. I gave them both a pre-test, and then I taught the unit, and the intervention was given to the experimental group, and you all know how experiments go. So I had a post-test, and at the end of the post-test, of course, I compared the pre-test and the post-test for both classes. I distributed a survey to the experimental group to see their perceptions, how they felt about it. It was really quite interesting to see that. And then, like I said, this teacher survey kind of directed my course of our PLC. Now, this is kind of the first thing that you all will probably be interested in, because if I'm trying to convince you all that reflective assessment techniques are worth your time, then you want to see some statistics, because we're all math oriented here. This is my experimental group. Okay, this is the kids that I did the reflective assessment stuff with. Later on in the presentation, I'll show you some of the reflective assessment techniques that I used. And you may like them, you may not. But on the pre-test, 12% of my class was proficient. Post-test, 65%. So what do you all think? Is that a pretty good increase? Went from 12% being proficient to 65%. So what percent gain was that? Let's see, what would that be? 53%. So if you all don't mind, keep that little figure in mind, that there was a 53% increase in proficiency or benchmark in the experimental group. And these are the kids that I purposely tried to get them to reflect. This next chart is for the control group, okay? To begin with, the control group had 11%. Was it 12 on the other, or was it 11? 12. Okay. And then 56%. So what percent increase is there? Is that 45? So right now, what do you all think about the numbers? Is it sort of, right now, is my statistics kind of convincing you that it might be beneficial? I mean, that's just something right now. I'm not sure how you feel about it because you weren't in here when I done all the work with that. I was lucky. Matt Sheffield was in my room, and he saw, the techniques that I was doing with my experimental group. And I think, Blakely, did you come in? Did I ask you to come in, I think? Blakely came in, and then Miss Emerton was in both classes, so she could see the difference between the experimental and the control group. This is the qualitative data, and I need to explain this to you just a little bit. There was a survey with 5 questions on it, and I can't remember if I included the survey or not. But question 1, there was 7.7 that had a low perception of that. And you all, what that was is I asked them if they felt like the reflective assessment techniques had helped them to stay motivated, to stay on task. 7.7% had a low perception. They said it didn't make any difference. No, they were less motivated. 38.5% of the kids said they were more motivated. I was really hoping that this number would have been higher. And as you look at this high perception, they really had a high perception on every question but the first one. This is them viewing what I did positively. And this question 1 was the only one that was low. The rest of them were above 60%. So this is how they felt about it. And you all know as well as I do. How they feel about something makes all the difference in the world, And I tried to be very positive about it and everything, but it's really hard to do some things the same and not the same intentionally. you know, but anyway, that was their perception. And then, while this is just what I've just said to you, I had to, you know, like write this out in words. I like the numbers, but like I said, most of them, what I would really like for you all to see right here is they like the peer assessment the most. Of all the reflective assessment techniques that I did, they like the peer assessment the most. So I tried to glean from what they told me, so that when I decided to do these reflective assessments again, that I made sure that I had peer assessment in it, because they said that helped them more than anything. Some students made a comment that it's hard to find your own mistakes, but like if Kimberly and I are working together and I may work a problem 2 or 3 times and I can't find my mistake, and she can look at it and she can see it. A lot of times I have to just start all over and not even look at the work I've done already, and you all may not have to do that, but the kids really like that. And you all know as well as I do, some of them have that built in. They want to check their work no matter what, and they do reflect with each other. Some of them naturally on their own, but that's our mastery learners. And right here, not everybody's a mastery learner. Look at this. Based on the results of the survey, some learning styles may benefit more than others using the intervention. I really believe that some of the things that I did did not address the learning styles. Those kids that I wanted to say they had a high favorable attitude about the reflective assessments are the ones that hated it. The ones that I thought would really be more engaged because I was intentional about what I was doing are the ones that hated it. So I know that it was because I didn't address the learning styles. So that's something you all can probably help me with. What can we do now? So as a result of you all hearing all this, I hope that you think that I think it was worth my time. I think that they benefited because the proficiency, that was a very good jump. Because on the pre-test we gave them a test that we would have given them without they had no instructions at all. I mean, they had not been taught about the content is what I mean. So what can we do now? Well, this is my suggestion. I want to share with you some of the ones that worked good for me. The reflective, where they did peer assessment. And I actually have some copies of this that I can share with you. But I did in this PowerPoint, and I'm going to send you all this link if you want it. This is my favorite note. And this link is just, it's a 3 to 6 minute video, and it's from Teaching Channel. Have any of y'all ever heard of Teaching Channel? This is a really good thing. It's called My Favorite No. I do it, but I don't do it exactly like this lady. And for time, I don't think we'll have time to watch it all.
Almost every day, I call it my favorite no.
But I'll let you all see just a little bit of it.
Good morning, you guys. Your warm-up is on the board. I'm going to hand out your index cards. I put a warm-up problem on the board, hand out index cards to all the kids, have them write their answer. I collect it, and then I sort it, and I say yes, no, and I look for my favorite wrong answer or my favorite no, and we analyze that. 4
Simple
minutes.
Algebra 1 thing. Blakely, Jason, and I have already done this in Algebra 1.
Everyone makes
They
mistakes.
struggle with an Algebra 2.
We're going to see your mistakes, you're going to see my mistakes.
Amanda.
But a mistake is your opportunity to share with me how much you understand. And if I don't know that you don't know something, I need to teach you before the test. The test is too late. And this is a great spot for me to teach you. Make sure your name is on your card. Put your pencil in your pencil slot and pass your cards to the center. I started my warm-up routine to replace clickers that a lot of classes are buying. So that was a clicker for each student. You ask a question, they lock in an answer.
Clickers.
And then you look at your computer screen and you know what percentage of your students understand the problem. Well, we didn't have the money for that, so instead, okay, here we go. I thought, well, what if I gave everyone index cards, collected them real quick with their answers already written on it, and then I can just sort them as quick as possible and find out what percentage of my kids know the answer. No. Yes. Costs 40 cents instead of $15,000. Yes, so we have quite a few yeses and some very interesting no's. 1, 2, 3. I then took that a step further, something I couldn't do with clickers. Look at the ones who are getting it wrong. How far are they from getting it right? And showing that work to the other kids. Okay, my favorite no. Someone wrote this. I say it's my favorite no because I want the kids to love. What in that problem am I happy to see?
She always starts out with what's right
first. So that
That's
if
why
it's any student's work,
they
they are like, oh, I did do that right. There's a mistake, but the mistake didn't ruin the whole thing. What do I like about this problem? Yeah.
Well, they distributed both with the 4x and the -2.
Very nice. And what? Today's lesson was on factoring. So I needed to make sure they understood how to distribute sections of the problem that are right. That I will then, how do we know that 4x?
So I really like this, and until you get your students really, good at doing this, what I did was during the unit, I actually worked some problems wrong. And Blakely and Jennifer, you all remember the problems where you had like a real odd shaped polygon when you broke it down? The kids wanted to add up the perimeters as well as the areas, and that gave them wrong answers because you can't do the sum of the perimeters without adding a side twice. Does that make sense? I'm a visual learner, so I don't know if you all can understand what I'm doing. But I on purpose made mistakes, and I put it under the document camera and they critiqued my mistakes so that they could feel comfortable. And I tell you what, was I didn't intend for this to happen, but I accidentally made a real simple not algebra, but a mathematical computation, and they called it. And that was so good because that let them see that I even make mistakes unintentionally. I mean, I on purpose done some of them to illustrate that, but it makes them feel really good to know that we're human and we make mistakes too. So they did really good with that, and I think Melissa was in here and she got to see that, and I think she agreed with me that that's very powerful. Until you get them used to stuff, you have to model it, in my opinion. Don't you all think? Before you actually have them to do stuff, it's good to model for them. So, whoops. How many of you have heard of formative assessment lessons? Y'all heard of that? Blakely and Jason, the rest of us were part of Math Plus. Kimberly, did you ever get to go to the Math Plus? We were told about this. Melinda and Bill Gates put a lot of money up to help with this. And Nottingham, does that sound right, you all? Nottingham and the University of Berkeley in California, they all put together. And then here's the website, and when somebody shows me something, I like to, why is it, I don't know why it's doing that, but this worked earlier. But just take one of these. You all can take whatever you want. Those are for algebra. Let's see. Yeah, you probably want the algebra. Blakely, did you get the one that said evaluating statements in large? Kimberly, you probably would want this one since you do the geometry. You all, these are wonderful. They are wonderful. They give you the entire lesson plan with the projector resources and everything. The one that says in large, the evaluating, I think Jennifer and Blakely and I have done that one. That's the one that has cards in it, and you sort them as true and false, and the ones that are mistakes, they don't just write false, you make them explain. So do you all think that would, what do you all think about that? That it's built in. Do you remember when I told you at the beginning it didn't require any more instructional time? And you all, these kind of things, if you can find them, if I can help you all find them, then that'll help you. Nobody has time to search for 2 to 3 hours on this stuff. And here's the website, and like I said, this was working earlier. I opened it up, but it's really good. It has all these lessons by category, grade level, and everything. They even go down to, Jennifer, do you remember, is it grade 5? It's at least grade 6. And we have, honestly, if your students are a little below benchmark, you actually could use some of the middle school ones. You know, you have to know your students and what they're capable of doing. And I mean, I think that if they could get practice with peer assessment, what would it matter if it was something that was classified as a middle school, as long as it would help you get your kids more engaged? And then once they get more engaged, I think their confidence soars. And I think it's really, I really enjoy doing the unit. I like it when I can think of things where I can walk around and listen to the conversations. In the video, I loved when those kids were having conversations and they were using the right terminology. They were using distributive property and that kind of stuff. So it's your turn to share. So by that, what I mean is, do you all, what are some reflective assessment techniques that you all use, that you help the kids to self-monitor? I've shown you my favorite now, and I've shown you the formative assessment lessons. What's some things that you all do already? You all, that's just fancy jargon for anything that you do to let them reflect, right? So what are some things that you all do?
In Algebra 2, we have a self-assessment sheet that they get for every unit, and they check, need help or I've got it for every concept, every
That is
semester.
awesome. Have any of you all done, I know Blakely has, have any of you all done the standard-based grading? You know how in Algebra 2 we've got it good. And I don't mean we've got it made. What I mean is we've got it good because everybody has worked so hard and we have the learning targets all together. It is such an eye-opening thing to take those learning targets and do a % correct on that and grade it individually instead of just holistic. That's one thing that I learned, and that's another, that just helps us with our RTI time. I think anything that we do now means less RTI time for these kids later. I don't know how you all feel about that, but I think anything that you can do to get them to thinking about their learning is just good. Yes.
One of the things that I've done before in the classroom is with an individual learning target that we're working on, create a sheet with bullseyes on it and give them, maybe 4 problems just to review something that we've done. And then they just swap out with each other and grade it real quick, and then they actually color in like 1, 2, 3, or 4 quadrants of the bullseye, and they get a real quick visual of what percentage mastery that's right on each chart.
A lot of people are visual learners, and if they have some kind of organizer, and you all, I had a self-monitoring block, and they hated it. That on what they liked the least, that's what it was, the self-monitoring block. And it was kind of similar to what you all had, but it was more detailed. I made them for every section, like if we did a worksheet, I'd have the answers up and they'd check it, they'd reflect it, and then they'd have to say that they got 18 out of 20 right and was that mastery. They hated that. They hated it. And I think some of the reason that they hated it is because they made comments, which you have to remember, I had accelerated, that I did this experiment with. They already do that. They already wanted to be benchmark, with the exception of those 3 or 4 that I was trying to hit with my reflective assessment technique. And their learning style, they said they wanted more hands-on stuff. That was their comment when I said what would make it better. So you all shared some good stuff. The only thing that I need from you all now is I need some feedback, because what we need to do now is to see if talking about these reflective assessment techniques, if this is something that actually we could do as a department when we do professional development, maybe in the summer. Are there some things that we could do? Could we visit those websites? Because just because Jennifer and Amanda and I have had that training doesn't mean that Blakely and Kimberly and Jason have seen that website, and it's really awesome. And Jennifer and I have before not done the whole packet. You can just take out what you want, and but those are really good lessons.
What was the website again? My favorite notes. Maybe I can't
Well, I tell you what I did.
Teacher Channel.
Yeah, it's on Teacher Channel. So all I did, Ms. Bartley, is I just went to YouTube and I typed in my favorite note. And there was one video that was just 3 minutes and something. This one, for somebody that's trying to adapt it to their classroom, and I also have a handout on that that I did make a copy of for everybody, but that's something that I can share with you. One thing that I do know, it's kind of hard. It's the end of the year. I understand, and it's kind of hard to wrap your brain around doing something new like this, but if you all just kind of consider it, and you all do great things with this anyway, but I love the favorite note because the kids, when they turn them in, nobody knows who anybody's is. But now the kids, my freshmen, would tell on each other. If I put theirs up there, they'd be like, that's mine. I'm like, nobody knows if you don't tell. They just couldn't stand it. You know, and I picked one that had mistakes in it. And I told them intentionally not to put their name on it, but that lady does it enough that those kids are really into it. You can just tell that's something that she does a lot. And when we went to Math Plus, for those of you that weren't part of that, they built in time. We got to navigate around, and they would actually build in. Amanda, when we do some of these activities, we were the students, and we would actually do it. And I have to apologize to you all because I would not want to take your time to do that today. So I know that it's actually more beneficial if you can actually navigate around, but I tried to give you all stuff so that if there was anything at all that you liked about it, that you would have that information. I can't remember websites and stuff like that. But do y'all have any questions for me? Again, I greatly appreciate. I know some of you all had to. Give up time, your free time, and I just want you to know I greatly appreciate that. And something that you all might want to do before you actually try one, just talk to like me and Jennifer and Blakely if we're going to be doing one. Maybe we could get somebody to watch a class and you could come in and watch the kids doing some of the work with this. But it's pretty good stuff. Kimberly and I are kind of an advantage. We can put our 5th period together. So she could, see me model that. And of course, Blakely has planning 5th. I hate that we don't have common planning time anymore. Well, I think that was a good thing, but with a small school, we just have to do what we have to do. There's no way, I don't think, for all of us to have common planning anymore. I'll take your all's feedback, and what I'll do is I'll have that as our recommendations, and you will see if we think that these formative assessment lessons and the favorite note is something that you feel like you could easily incorporate without a lot of time. The favorite note you could start doing tomorrow. You wouldn't have to do anything new or whatever. She used index cards. I let the kids use their own paper.
Post-it notes or
Post-it notes or anything.